6 o'clock. Call meeting to order. Shelley, can do a roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. District 1, Councilman Rios.
Present.
District 2, Councilman Pastor.
Present.
District 3, Councilman Latham.
Present.
District 4, Vice Mayor Stapleton.
Here.
District 5, Councilman Gonzalez.
Here.
District 6, Councilman Shipley is running late, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Camaros.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Shelley. I want to invite Mr. Anthony Hernandez for the invocation.
Please join me for the prayer. Almighty God, Father of us all, we, your servants, turn to you for continuance of your blessing upon us. You who have spared us veterans from the grasp of our enemies, grant us the full understanding of your precious comfort. We thank you for your privilege of life and the blessing we enjoy through your graciousness in our country, the land in which we are given the freedom of speech, religion, and the pursuit of happiness. Assist us to know you better and the wisdom to acknowledge you as the God of the universe and our ideal. In your mercy, may the living find our peace. Grant us from above this day the challenge of high endeavors, the beauty of our humble spirit, the strong courage, and the will with exertion to continue to glorify you, to praise you, and to love you the end of time. Amen.
Anthony, can you lead us in the pledge?
Do you want me to pledge allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have summary of current events, and we'll start with council. Councilman Rios, start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to share something. I got an email today from a representative from ADOT, and for those of you that know what's going on at the Pinto Creek Bridge closure, the latest is they were going to open it up tonight with a possible closure tomorrow between 9 and 1. And then thereafter, they're going to see how things roll out. So the good news is they're going to open it up today and possibly just shut it down shortly tomorrow. So safe travels. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Frank. Mariano.
Mr. Mayor, a couple things I want to allude to. One is that there are an awful lot of new projects coming online with the city, and we'll talk about one of them in just a second. For you out there in Zoom land, if you want to know what the city is doing this year with the many projects coming online, just go to the City of Globe website, pull up the strategic plan, and in that plan you'll see a whole plethora of 9 months worth of projects coming online here in the city. They'll be affecting infrastructure and recreation and many other aspects of the city. So read this strategic plan, which means we don't have to repeat ourselves up here because it's all on paper. The thing I want to allude to finally is that this morning our city staff presented to the Healy County Board of Supervisors the Community Center Pool Project. And I want to commend Linda Autonetto and Jerry Barnes for their excellent presentation. And I think the county's going to try to see their way clear to helping us on finishing out the numbers that we're looking for. There was a good, all three board members had their own opinion of how we got here, what entities aren't participating with us, and it was pointed on a couple of items that the tribe is doing their own thing out there in San Carlos, and that the aquatic center personnel haven't jumped in line with us. I'm not stating anything about politics, but they picked up on that, and they encourage us to try to make it a region-wide participatory project. And I think finally that Linda and Jerry were very good in their presentation. My compliments. it may be worth some grant money down the road here. So thank you for your efforts, and I want to commend all the city staff for all of the projects and all of the beating the bushes they've been doing to find the money for these projects that are listed in our strategic plan. And as I said, it's going to be a busy year for you department heads, and John out there especially is going to be really busy. I'm looking at an item here on the days, John. You're going to be busy, buddy. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Marlo. Fernando?
First of all, I apologize for being late. They're trying to teach this old dog new tricks. I'm doing my securities licensing, and it's not fun, but I'm getting through it. And I got to attend the Citizens Academy the other night, and I thought it was really well done, and the students were very engaged, and so it's just exciting to see that happen. So and I see some of them here tonight. They have homework, so they have to get out and attend a public meeting. So they're going to get credit. So thanks for doing that. I hope you get a lot out of it.
Thank you, Fernando. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I was fortunate enough to, while I was in Superior this weekend during their Apache Leap Days, Cobre Valley Medical Center was over there giving out shots, and I happened to walk up and says, "Hey, what kind of shots are you giving?" And they said the booster, and I said, "Which one?" And they said all three of them. I said, "Okay, good. Let me have one. I'm ready." So if you haven't got a booster, if you believe in getting the shots, I would encourage you to go out and get them because they're readily available in the community, and I don't think anybody's charging to give you a shot. So
That's it?
yeah, that's it. I'm sorry, Mr.
Jesse?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Mike?
Just have a few things, Mayor. Thank you. First of all, I want to remind everybody that this Sunday is Halloween. We're already here. It's hard to believe that November is on Monday. But we're going to have the downtown Halloween get-together again this year. So just be careful, enjoy, have a good time. Bring your kids out and join everybody in there. There's typically thousands of people that attend that. So it's nice to see it back after last year. So I know I'm going to be participating in that. So come on out and enjoy the festivities. And then secondly, another reminder, this Friday is the Globe Miami football game. And Globe has already got it down. So we're going to take them Vandals out.
We shall see.
Whatever you say.
Whatever you say. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mike. I have a few things. I give a COVID update from the Health Department. The first 3 weeks of October, Gila County has had 548 new cases. The Globe Miami San Carlos area has had 323 of those cases, Globe being the highest one this past week with 81 new cases. We're averaging about 15 cases a day reported. And this doesn't include the active cases that are in our community. So with Halloween coming up, be cautious. I'd wear a mask if you're not vaccinated, or even if you are vaccinated, because these numbers are truly going up. These are the highest numbers we've seen since January of 2021. So we're having a pretty high number at this time. On the 14th, I was asked to do a presentation down at the Hera Casino in Maricopa as a representative of Central Arizona government. And I presented two proposals for Southern Gila County. One was our proposal for a sidewalk project from Jess Hayes Road to Six Shooter Canyon for $1.2 million for phase 1 and 2. And the second proposal was a project between Hagen and Winkleman, and it's a $951,000 project for improvement on a roadway they're working together with. And our project is an IGA in cooperation with Gila County, so that's what they look for. I want to thank our staff, and I definitely want to thank Jerry Barnes, Rick Powers, for the impressive work they have done. What they look for is shelf-ready projects, and they look for projects that are agencies that are working together. Those are the ones that get the priority. And now it goes on to the legislative session for final approval as part of the $50 million request for projects throughout Arizona. On the 23rd out here in the front, they had an opioid event, and they had many presentations. I was asked to also speak there, and it was great. It's just awareness of opioid overdoses and the crisis we're in with not only the young, but through all age groups. On the 5th is First Friday again, and remind everybody, it's our second cruise night. We were lucky to have about 50 cars last time. 60 cars. It was amazing. We were only expecting about 10 to 15. If anybody's interested, at 5:45, meet us down here by the teepee, and we'll start the cruise at 6 o'clock. The 29th and 30th this week, they're having an after-fire update, and it's in cooperation with the University of Arizona Cobre Valley Watershed Panel. It'll be at Bullion Plaza if anybody wants to attend. It's from 1 to 5 on Friday and 9 to 1 on Saturday. And there'll be different panels of discussing the telegraph fire, the flooding, and how we move forward to mitigate future emergencies. And last, on the 9th, at our next council meeting date, from 1 to 5, Representative David Cook has booked here at the council chambers, and this is part of the Fire Management Ad Hoc Committee that he has assigned, and they're going through different areas in the state to talk about fire management and future, cooperation between the U.S. Forest Service and ranching and other businesses in the community. So that's open to the public. It will be live streamed also, but it is on the 9th, 1 to 5 here at the chambers. That's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, members council, just really quick, a reminder of the 3 upcoming events that are big. The Downtown Association doing the Halloween on Broad Street, October 31st, again this Sunday. December 4th, the Besh Festival of Lights, that will be happening. That'll be on Saturday night, and that's a city-sponsored event. And then December 11th, and check my dates. The Christmas Light Parade, December 11th. That'll be Saturday night also. So we're getting geared up for them. Post-pandemic world, even though it's still not too post yet, but we need to keep moving forward. And just one last word to council. Staff is gearing up. Staff is building momentum. You can feel it every week, every month. It seems like we're getting more and more going on and getting more and more accomplished. And it's just going to hit afterburners in January. Once we get past we got the holidays coming up, and by family and friends, and then come January, it's going to be time to go. And I think the staff and the city is ready for it. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. We go to first community call to the public. Do we have anybody online or in our inbox? I do have one card for community call that I'll call up Ms. Sherry Rice.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. As many of you know, it's been over 2 years since the Friends of the Globe Public Library have had a fundraiser, but that's about to change. So I'm here to cordially invite all of you and the audience to join the Friends on Friday, November 12th. It's not going to interfere with the football game this year. Friday, November 12th from 4 to 7 at St. Paul's United Methodist Church. We're going to have a loaded baked potato supper, and those that attended maybe 2 years ago, you remember it was a great success. Many toppings. So you'll have the baked potato, salad, dessert, and a beverage. And the tickets are $12. I have them tonight, and they are available at the library also, Rael tells me. And you have to have a ticket. We will not be selling any at the door because we have to plan for it. Thank you for your time.
Just quickly, I'm sorry, the time or the place, I'm sorry.
It's from 4 to 7, and you can eat in or take away.
And where's it at?
St. Paul's. Mhm. Yes, since we couldn't get in the senior center this year.
Thank you, Sherry. Anything else, Shelley? Next, we go to special presentations and ceremonial matters, and we have 3A, introduction of Brittney Meza, new utility billing clerk. Jody.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I am here to introduce you to Brittney Meza. She's the new utility billing clerk and the new smiling face that you'll see when you walk into City Hall. Her and her family have just moved up here a few months ago from the Phoenix area where she's lived her whole life. And I would like for all of you to welcome her to the City of Globe and to the Globe family with me.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity for this position at the city, and thank you for welcoming my family and I to your city. That's it.
Welcome. Item B, we have Veterans Day Proclamation, and I'll read it, the proclamation. Whereas at 11 a.m. on November 11th, 1918, after 4 years of bitter conflict, the world rejoiced and celebrated the signing of an armistice by the Allied forces in the Federal Republic of Germany for the cessation of World War I. And whereas to remember the sacrifices that the men and women made to ensure the lasting peace on November 11th, 1919, Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States, proclaimed an armistice day in the United States. And whereas on June 4th, 1926, the United States Congress passed a concurrent resolution requesting Calvin Coolidge, the 30th President of the United States, to issue another proclamation to observe November 11 with all the appropriate ceremonies. And whereas on May 13th, 1938, 20 years after World War I, Congress passed an act making November 11 in each year a federal holiday, a day to be dedicated and celebrated hereafter as Armistice Day. And whereas in order for a grateful nation to pay homage to the veterans of all wars, on June 4th, 1954, Dwight Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States, signed into law a bill introduced by the U.S. Representative Edwin Reese from Kansas, renaming Armistice Day to Veterans Day. And whereas in 1971, Richard Nixon, the 37th President of the United States, declared Veterans Day to be observed on the second Monday in November. And whereas because the commemoration of Veterans Day was a matter of historic and patriotic significance, on September 20th, 1975, Gerald Ford, the 38th President of the United States, signed Public Law 94-97, which returned the annual observance of Veterans Day to the original date of November 11. And whereas Veterans Day continues to be observed on November 11, regardless of what day of the week of which it falls. Now therefore I, Al Gameros, Mayor of City Globe, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim and call upon all residents of the City of Globe to observe a moment of silence at 11 a.m. on November 11, 2021, in remembrance of all veterans who fought to safeguard our heritage and freedom, and to celebrate and proudly display the flag of the United States of America throughout the City of Globe on Thursday, November 11, 2021, Veterans Day. And Anthony, do you have anything you want to say, or we're...
Thanks, Anthony.
Garden.
Item C, presentation by staff updating council on the 2021 Arizona Redistricting Process with possible direction to comment. Paul?
Mr. Mayor, members of council. So we just have a very short presentation, but I think some discussion. And so let's see here. Where's my magic wand that makes things go forward? And this was a request from council to bring this forward. Just the basics. Every 10 years they do a count nationwide to, as in the Constitution, to see how many people reside. From that, they do a reapportionment of the 435 seats in the House. Unfortunately, this year Arizona didn't gain a 10th seat. We're still at 9. And then, as part of the redistricting, they also redistrict the 30 state districts. Each state district has 2 members of the House, 1 member of the Senate. So it gives us 30 senators, 60 members of the House, 90 members in the state legislature. And so there'll be roughly 3 people representing us, a senator and 2 members of the House at the state level, 1 congressman, 2 senators at the federal level. We'll have a grand total of 9 congressmen statewide to represent Arizona as a whole. Independent redistricting committee is something put together in 2000. You have 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, 1 independent. They come together instead of the legislature sitting down with 90 people trying to draw maps. It's hard enough with 5 people trying to draw maps. The redistricting is something I have not followed as closely as I have in years past. But there is very high. They have a lot of maps. We saw a presentation between now and last time. They have a very intense and high functioning website that you can do and look at the data and do projections and try different ways of doing that. But it really, it's not for the faint of heart of trying to manage those map websites. So I spent about an hour on it, and then I said, okay, I'm just going to, find some samples. I won't go into a lot of detail on the requirements per district. They do look for community of interests. They look for people of the same qualifications, of the same background, economic background, social background, and try not to split up like groups. You don't want to, if you have a group of people who really love to play the game Monopoly, okay, and there's 300 people. You don't want to divide it right in half and split that up, and you kind of want to keep those like groups together. But with the state population that it is, this more comes in play in the more denser areas where we're very rural, and so the splitting up and the communities of interest are very it's easier to keep everybody together because we are so less populated than the central Maricopa County and Pima County. Currently, they're in the 30-day review period of the final draft maps. My understanding, there's a whole series of maps. The presentation I have has some maps I pulled together I think about 2 weeks ago. They're probably not the current, and my understanding is they're not the most current ones going. So I know we have a speaker that wants to address some of the more current maps, and so that'll probably be a better chance to talk about that. But we do have the period to comment now. There is a time period that if we are not happy with what we see, this body or individuals, citizens, individual members of council, the body can make statements either supporting or offering changes to those. I don't have any recommendations other than I think the agreement is we all like to see us to be like-minded people. Our community of interest is rural-minded people. We're very different than somebody in the heart of Phoenix or the heart of Tucson, a high population growth. The past 10 years, we've been kind of connected at the hip with Pinal County, which is one of the fastest growing counties in the U.S. And here we are, Gila County, where it's still 57,000 people. And so that's been kind of caused some, just some concerns and some, how do they represent both a non-growth county and on a high growth county. So that's one of those areas where you kind of want to keep the people of similar backgrounds, similar situations together. Final adoption be by the state. They'll put maps together, they'll vote on them, House, Senate, and then to the governor. But that's the basics. I'm just going to jump right to when I did my research. This was State District 7, which went all the way down the right-hand side of the state. My understanding is that has changed. It's morphed into the final drafts. But you can see, at least in that respect, we're sticking with other rural counties. And I think in that group, we're like there's two smaller counties and or at least one smaller county than us. And then the federal, this being congressional, the O'Halloran district, which is seated by a Democrat right now, would morph into this larger group. This would be now District 2 for whatever reason, but it would encompass O'Halloran, and then when the election comes, there'd likely be a Republican challenging or running against this. What's unique about this map in talking is usually they try to separate the Hopi and the Navajo. Just historically, they've tried to have two different people representing them. They've now requested, to be my understanding, represented in the same congressional district, and that shows this. But it's such a large district. It's it's just a gigantic district. But they need to have over I think 770,000 people per congressional district, and so when you have such rural areas, it takes a lot of land to get those people in there. And that is all I have for you. But I believe we have a speaker, and the speaker had brought forward some maps that are the two he's going to talk about. So I'm going to pass those out to you right now. And Mr. Mayor, unless you have any
Do we have any comments or questions from the council? Do you have any comments from them?
No,
You guys are more up on it.
Well, it's something that we have to do every 10 years. And basically, we have an opportunity to provide input. So regardless of what you feel and whether or not they agree with you, I would advise that we take some kind of position and share that, because otherwise the 5 independent redistricting committee members will decide for us without our input. And I think that historically, the metro areas are the ones that are growing the most. And so what probably is likely to happen is that we could become the outer sliver of a congressional district or a legislative district that's basically a metro area. And then we have to share with them what rural concerns are. Or my preference would be that we have rural leaders representing rural areas, so at least they know our issues, they understand them. We may not always agree what the solution is, but at least they talk the same language. And so that to me, that's really, do we want to chime in on that or not tonight? That's it, Mayor.
Is there, I guess the question is, we're talking rural representation, but is there representation in accordance to party, or that party doesn't matter in this in redistricting?
Well, I know that they take that into consideration, but for us, I think it comes down more to whether we're rural or metro.
Mike?
No, I don't have any questions.
I got a card from Jess Bryant, if you want to.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity. I can and happy to address most questions that you will have on this issue. Fernando has been gracious enough to be a contact point for me and assist me in this, particularly in engaging the city of Globe. Myself and former Senator Sylvia Allen and some others like Carmen Casillas and others around our region, our rural eastern region, have been working on this now for the last several months. We are engaging all the governments, county and city, and anybody else we can get a hold of around the primarily the 5 eastern counties and the neighboring neighborhood regions. So I want you to have an understanding here, so that you hopefully can add your voice to this process. As some of what's already been said, the Constitution mandates a census every 10 years, and the original purpose of that was for reapportionment. Now, the taxation part of that has been removed since then, but the reapportionment to determine voting districts still remains in effect. So we have a census, we know the populations, the demographics, and so now everybody who has a voting district has to redraw those lines based on that new data. So the city of Globe has districts, those districts have to be redrawn. Board of Supervisors of every county have districts, those have to be redrawn. But so at the state level, the congressional and the legislative districts have to be redrawn as well. Now, the difference is that whereas each jurisdiction, the city and the county are in charge of their own redistricting at the state level, the voters in the November 2000 election created an independent commission that is in charge of that. And they are independent in every sense of the word. So they will make this decision. And yes, there's going to be half a dozen lawsuits, there is every time, but that decision more or less is going to be final. So to catch up on what the manager showed you, the map you saw there in his presentation was called a grid map. That was our very, 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 very beginning idea, and it has transformed so much since then that you wouldn't even recognize it anymore. But I try not to react to what they're doing. My philosophy is that we need to remain in an offensive posture and keep addressing the commission on what works for us. So our goal is that we believe that having a rural voice in the legislature is what represents our interests, as opposed to having a metropolitan, urban, suburban population center, in which case we become a sort of back seat to the conversation and the resources for which we're having to compete over, some of which have already been discussed here tonight. So we have people who come from among us that represent those interests, that understand those interests. They're competing for us. We had the 5 eastern districts. That first commission created us a rural district here in eastern Arizona. It was Graham, Greenlee, Gila, southern Navajo, and Apache counties. And we had our rural representation for 10 years. So after every census, there's a new commission seated. The new commission, for some reason, I don't honestly know why, they decided to split our former rural district up into 4 or 5 different districts. Each one of those were centered now on a metropolitan or urban center. So in the Northeast, they ended up with Flagstaff and Sedona. Here in the Central, we ended up with Santan and Casa Grande. In the Southeast, they ended up with Sierra Vista. We're contending to the commission that it represents our voice, that we are a minority in this state that is not protected by a law. That is the rural citizens. And therefore, it is in our interest that we have a representation that reflects our interests. This is our message to them. Before you is our proposals to the commission. It's Navajo and Hopi nations, or would they rather be in eastern Arizona? I have emails out to each of those governments and have not yet received an expression of opinion on that. So we're presenting a scenario that would reflect either way to the commission. This is a base concept, theoretical concept to the commission that this is the basis of 5 eastern counties. We call it the 5+ eastern counties proposal, because it's not just the core 5 eastern counties, as you can see, but it also supplements the 238,000 population threshold with the Verde Valley and with the Copper Corridor, that eastern panel there along Highway 77 and 177, all the way over to 79. The other one you'll see and could be done so without dividing up our rural eastern district. But to make up for the loss of the population of the reservations, theoretically, we could go down into northern Cochise County, where it's much of the same, farming, ranching, a little bit of mining, same people as us. This is the concept. At present, I'll tell you that the commission is hearing us. They have demonstrated in their latest versions, and these versions are constantly updating. There's 3 phases. There's the grid maps, the draft maps, and then the final maps. Right now, we are in the development stage of the draft maps, and beginning November 2nd, they will have a 30-day public hearing period to receive public input on those finalized draft maps. And I will add in there too that communities are being given the opportunity to invite a public hearing. I understand the San Carlos Apache has made an invitation. I know Navajo County has made an invitation. It would be very nice to see more of our rural eastern communities to give that invitation to host a hearing for this 30-day period here. So the commission has demonstrated that in particularly the north, they have taken formerly estranged communities from our once rural district and added them back together. However, they're still repeating the same error from 2011, and all of eastern Arizona is still divided up amongst urban centers. So at their present iteration, which can change at any moment, at their present iteration, all of Gila County except for Hayden Winkleman, and Navajo County and Apache County, except for the reservations, are being joined together, but we're also being joined still with Santan Valley and parts of Apache Junction and Gold Canyon. At the present, Florence and Casa Grande have been removed from us, which is fine because they've become urban centers, suburban centers, and that's not really what we want. So while they're showing signs that they have not ignored us, whereas the previous commission did flatly ignore us, still there's work to be done. So our strategy is multiple facets going forward here. We've been reaching out to all of our communities and urging them to, first of all, adopt a resolution. I have provided to staff a draft resolution that can be modified for your use. And we want to see those those resolutions adopted by the council as soon as possible and sent to the commission that basically endorse these maps as a base concept representation, and that our sentiments of having a rural district. That's very important that we do that as soon as possible. The town of Miami, the town of Pima, the town of Thatcher have already adopted those resolutions. I've spoken to several other communities over the last several weeks, and they're working on getting on their agendas. Lakeside's coming up. Clifton is coming up. Several of them are also coming up here in the next week or two. We want to get those immediately. I've also have at the suggestion of one of the council members from the northeastern part of our state, he suggested that I put together a draft letter that each separately, in addition to the resolutions that council members, mayors, staff, people from other associations like CAG or cities and towns or your chambers of commerce, that they can take those sample letters, they can make it their own, and they can send that as well, basically saying the same thing. We want a rural district. This is our interests. Each iteration of their map that the IRC produces is available for public comment. And this is separate from the public hearings. So their website takes public comments. Their website is near impossible to navigate. I've been for months getting nowhere with their website and their mapping tool, but managed to come up with a link. I presently have a link. I've been trying to communicate to get that to you guys, get it to everybody, that you can drop public comments on these maps. So we want to continue to keep that offensive posture and iterate to them that combining us with a metropolitan and an urban center is not in our interest, that combining the 5 eastern counties with our neighboring corridors. That is in our interest. That's something else we want to do. We need to keep it in the media and keep citizens informed so they can continue to make comments and letters of their own. The strategy here is to make as much noise as possible. The squeakiest wheel gets the oil, as they say. We have to compete with 4 commissioners that are coming from Maricopa and Pima County. The exception is Commissioner Watchman, who's from the Navajo Nation. We have to make them hear our voice, and to do that, it's going to take more than just one issuance of a comment or a resolution. We have to be constantly passing resolutions, sending letters, making comments. We've got to get as much of the public involved as possible to do the same. If we have any hope at all of getting our will, our interests communicated to this commission and not be forgotten in the massive task before them, we have to constantly be making this voice be heard. Does anybody have any questions?
What is the deadline for that resolution of those draft letters to be submitted?
You know, I get asked that a lot, and it's really something I can't answer firmly. It's just as soon as possible. Like I said, the whole process is nearing its end at the moment. They've just about finalized. I believe Thursday or Friday they're going to finalize their draft map and prepare for public hearings. So we do have at least through the month of November. They're still going to be active on this. I say that while the sun is up, we need to be working on this. So as long as they have not produced a final map, we need to be making our noise.
Now, the second proposal is it eliminates what's White River with Flagstaff, and is that San Carlos also go with that?
Yes, yeah. So the second page represents San Carlos and White Mountain reservations being extracted from eastern Arizona, placed with the other Native American reservations in the north. And nothing else changes on that map except that northern Cochise was added to supplement that population loss.
So the Voting Rights Act during the last census protected minority-held seats. So they had a legislator that was a Native American, and so they were trying to make sure that they could hold a Native American seat. And so they offered the tribes to combine them, which is what that second version does. It comes in, so if San Carlos wants to continue to support a Native American seat, then they could opt to try to stay that way or become part of the other district. So it just really depends on where they're at and what they want to do. But that's the reason the map was drawn that way last time, was to protect that seat. And so there's a lot of things that factor in, but regardless of how we feel, we should share how we feel so that at least that's factored in when they draw up these maps. It's better for us to get in early than later.
Any other questions from council or comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sitting on the redistricting committee, so I don't know how much I should contribute at this level if I'm going to be reviewing at the next level.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, I believe that the redistricting committee you're doing is solely to redistrict the Gila County among those 3 board members.
Oh, okay.
And so I think there should be no conflict of interest between participating in this, and it gets kind of confusing as how that works. Mr. Mayor, I would recommend, I believe, I agree with the facts laid out, Jesse laid out. I wasn't sure if the final drafts had been dropped yet. There's 30-day comment period. Obviously, the sooner the better that we do that. If it's your privilege, or would you like? We're still going to have till late November to make a decision and do anything. If council's wishes are to support a set of maps or a map, and I like the idea of having the map where it has our interests covered, but gives options for the other members to choose. So we're giving them two to pick from. We could come back on the 9th, the November 9th meeting and finalize a resolution. I would say in between that time, maybe council may want to call your counterparts with other cities and other organizations, and just have a little one-on-ones and find out, if there's any additional opinions, additional information, positive, negative, just to get a feeling of comfort that we're all on the same page and pulling for the same thing. Just because this has been happening kind of under the radar, under the pandemic, not so much because we didn't know about it, but just at the city level, we've had so much going on. I appreciate the information being shared here tonight, and I would encourage you as council members voted in by the population, members of the political body, to call other members of the political body and get their opinions as to how this goes, because this affects, like I say, who will be representing us on the federal level and on the state level, to the point of the city district. And I was talking to Bill, I jumped on the phone. I don't believe that this triggers us having to do a redistricting of our 6 districts in the city of Globe. But I asked Bill, he wasn't aware of that. I looked through the city code. I didn't see what triggered that. I would think a change in population and a balance, so that the districts have a balanced electorate. But I don't know that we've been anticipating at this current time, in sequence with what's going on at the state and federal level, of doing any type of city redistricting or balancing of the districts. But I can also give me more time to research that. So recommendation would be let's make some phone calls, and bring this back in the next meeting. If that's if you want to participate.
Mayor, during the last census, our population in Globe really didn't change, but where they lived changed. So some districts lost population and some gained population. So then we moved the line so that it was more or less, it doesn't have to be exactly even, but it should be pretty close. And so that's the only, we had to shift the lines over just a little bit to accommodate the population shift, not change.
And in this last census, it really didn't change a lot of the population.
Yeah, the population was the same, but like District 1 had more people move there, and I think I can't remember, District 5 had less, so they had to stretch out the lines. And
Yeah, so I'd be happy to report back. Like I say, I didn't. That question wasn't asked to me until this afternoon, and like I say, Bill and I talked real quick, and I'm not ready to say what triggers. Is it optional? Because if council wants to look at a redistricting the balance, then we can look at that. I think the numbers for the census just came out. I don't know if we can even find how we'd have to probably look at the voting records is the easiest way to find out how many people in a district. So I'd like just some time to do some research on that question before we address it at the council level.
they actually use census tracts. And
Right,
so-
but the districts, the census tracts cover multiple city districts. And so then you'd have to break it down. I don't know how you break it down if the census tract is smallest unit and the districts are smaller than that.
Mike, go ahead.
So, the maps that you're showing us now break congressional district 2 up, right?
These are strictly legislative proposals,
Oh, legis-
not congressional. Yep, I'm strictly dealing with legislative here. I'm not trying to take this on in a divided front. I think the legislature is more important to us than the congressional.
Okay, so this becomes District 6 and,
The numbers are arbitrary, but yeah, it's basically showing how there can be a Native American district to the north and the 5 eastern counties based district here in the east.
And they do have to be continuous. So you can't, contiguous, you can't like
And jump
have an
up.
island. So that's why in order to incorporate a fully Native American district, it had to come down and grab San Carlos.
okay.
Paul, I'm only one of 7 on the council, but I think that we should come back with a proposal on a resolution and a draft letters to move forward. I also like to look into if Central Arizona CAG would like to submit a letter also for this, from the executive board also.
Okay. And and we'd have to see, because CAG is it's a good question for CAG and see where they're at. And no, we'll and Jesse was kind enough to give me some of the drafts of letters he's been sharing, and I would use those as boilerplates to add. But,
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest, as the manager had suggested, that if you're going to contact anybody, I've had the opportunity to sit down and speak with Mayor Bessich in Superior, and I think she has a pretty good handle on this. And if you want to compare notes with her, I think that'd be a good person to do so with.
Any other questions, comments?
I would also just like to add that communication between all of us in the whole region is very important in this. And while I've been doing my best to reach out to you and to Councilman Shipley and Mike's no longer working email address, I would like very much to stay in contact with all of you. So if we can exchange contact information, if you're interested in doing so, I would definitely like to keep you in my circle of emails. I send out emails to people around our region. I don't even know, they've just collected. And also another set of emails has been going out to all of our elected officials around our district. So a couple hundred people in some places, it seems like. Anyway, I would like very much to keep you all in that circle as well.
and Mr. Mayor, members of council, I think all the council's email addresses are available on the website easily. Just if you click through to their bio page, we can find that. And so Jesse, you should be able to find all them, and you have mine. Okay.
Does anybody have troubles getting emails through their city page?
Use mine on that one too. You said
Okay.
you're using the other one. Use mine.
Yeah.
Mary Globese.
Okay, we'll do.
And,
Thank you.
and Jesse, you can we can get you, make sure you have they should have the raw email address, the first initial, last name at globaz.gov. So you don't have to go through the submit button, but
Okay.
just they should be able to capture the email. And I think you have most of them, but we'll double check.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess.
Thanks, Jesse.
Next, we have consent calendar. Matters listed under the consent calendar considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. Public hearing items are designated with an asterisk. Prior to the consideration of the consent agenda, the mayor will ask whether any member of the public wishes to remove a public hearing item for separate consideration. Members of the council and/or staff may remove any item for separate consideration. A, consideration of waiver of section 2-4-10A prior discussion rule to allow action on the balance of the consent agenda. A1, accounts payable, $556,038.11. Consideration of approval of council minutes, September 28th, 2021 minutes. Consideration of agreements and purchases less than $25,000. B1, contract number CS-2021-0028 with Rodriguez Construction in the amount of $10,500 for the water barn office build. C, consideration to appoint Grace Whalen to the Historic Preservation Advisory Commission. And item D, consideration to approve fiscal year 2020-2021 third and fourth quarter distribution of the bed tax funds in the amount of $21,527.65 to the Cobre Valley Center for the Arts to be paid from account number 10-51-51920, General Fund, Cobre Valley Center for the Arts. Do we have anybody from the public, the council, or staff that would like to remove any of these items separately?
Mayor, if there's no exceptions to the consent agenda items, I would make a motion we approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda as read. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstaining? Motion passed. New business. Item A, discussion and consideration to award contract number CS-2021-0026 to EarthQuest Plumbing for the Dugan Common Line Elimination Project in the amount of $48,826 plus a contingency amount of $1,174 for a total of $50,000, which has been budgeted and will be funded from account number 51-80-52203 Sewer Common Line Replacement. Jerry.
Mayor, members of council. So this is a contract to do one of the common lines that's within the city that we've been having issues with and that we've been requested by the property owners to mitigate. So it is, like I say, with the contingency and everything, $50,000. Plans have been drawn, contract sent out. EarthQuest was the lowest responsible bidder. I'm asking tonight that you waive the rules 2-4-10A because there is an urgency to order the material for this project. So I would like to get it out as quickly as possible. Any questions on it?
Gary, go ahead, Mike.
So last year, we established this fund for $65,000 a year.
Right.
And there was some carryover from last year, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got some extra monies to do a little bit more if we run into a problem.
We do, and
won't
on this
stick you for a
on
number.
this particular project, I don't believe there'll be a whole lot because of the type of project it is, but we're hoping to get one more project out with that money. We also have a common line item in the WIFA funds for $725,000. So,
Okay.
so the more we can identify in the sewer study through the WIFA, the more we can mitigate. So we hope we've been kind of struggling getting these projects out, and it's mainly because we haven't been able to identify the worst ones. The sewer study that we have with the WIFA grant loan will help us identify those. So, and that should be done this year.
Gary, just for the, well, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
And this is a regular budget line item now, right? So, okay, all right. So we don't lose sight of it. That's good.
Yes.
This is a good program.
Gary, just for the public, the location of this and district, this is in, what the address is?
Muriel Street
District 5, John says.
So it's, where at?
up here by,
John?
up where John Denton used to live, I think, up past,
Around, okay.
yeah.
Okay. Down in that little loop down? Okay.
We're actually taking the common line and replacing it with a line that will be the cities and up to city code. So,
Yeah.
and then also tie the existing laterals into manholes. There'll be 3 separate manholes that we install. So it's a better system by far. And I know the property owners will be happier than having the sewage back up in their house.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Freddie.
Jerry, how many units are we talking that are going to be affected on this?
There's 5 properties, and at present, since one of the houses was tore down, there's four properties, correct?
Yeah.
So one of the houses actually was tore down, and the lateral was plugged. So, but with this configuration, we left room to tie a lateral on later if we need to with that property. We wanted to make sure that that line, that main that was running in front was the city's, and we were able to tie in a lateral for the other property had it ever be sold that way,
So we'll take over after we're done with the work.
with part of it. Part of it. The laterals will still remain the property owners, but they will tie into the city main.
Just, I know we have some guests, so we had people literally connect one sewer line directly to the next house, directly to the next house, and directly to the next house, instead of it going to the street and then down. So that's what we're trying to fix. Have we identified all of them, or are there still potentially more out there?
Yeah, we're so-
We've identified maybe 20 or 30, and we figure there's, 5 times that many?
That's
So
great.
it's probably a 12-year, 10, 15-year project.
So let me just break it down. The sewer study will identify all the laterals. Okay, by knowing where the laterals are located and the accounts on the sewer, we can identify how many houses are connected to that lateral. And so we can then identify all the common lines.
Sure.
A lot of them we don't know about because we haven't had any issues with them. You know, and some of them we don't know about because people take care of their own issues. And so it's the unfortunate few that aren't able to take care of their own sewer problems that we hear about.
And Mr. Mr. Mayor, members of council, and Councilman Shipley, they tend to self-identify sometimes, and they make themselves known. And we prioritize the spending on those that are most needed, inability to get it fixed, the ones that are actively flowing. But eventually, we will continue this program until we've identified them all and eliminated them all, and that's how we avoid any type of gift clause violation, because we categorize all of these common lines as being available for public money to fix the infrastructure that we support with our enterprise project company, basically.
And there's some of these common lines that's going to be very expensive to fix. And that's why we have set aside $725,000, I believe, in the WIPA money to address some of those more expensive ones. So our annual budget for these common lines isn't impacted so greatly, so.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, one last comment. We did go out and we see 3 bids on this. This was the lowest bid. The second lowest bid was another local company, 30,000 more, and then an outside company, basically 5 times more. So it's kind of, the more you know about the projects, the tighter the bid you can give, because sometimes you start digging, you find more stuff. But and then there's the economy right now, and the bidding process is out of whack because there's just dynamics. But we did do the 3 bids that came in under 50,000. So
Good.
at least the winning bid did.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, Mayor, I would move to waive the rules so we could take action on this tonight and move to approve it.
We have motion and second for approval of item A. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstaining? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. 5B, discussion and consideration to designate 4 additional holiday vacation days from December 27th to December 30th, 2021 for city staff, and to authorize the allocation of 4 additional accrued holiday vacation days to all public safety employees assigned to shifts. Paul?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, so council has always sought out ways to support support the staff during the holidays, and we've done various things. I think we did this last year. This is the most successful, which actually to give them additional vacation time for that week between Christmas and New Year's, and we had high praise and a lot of people who just said, "Wow, that was relaxing." You're at the end of the year, you get to kind of not think about things. Everybody else is off, so it's not like when you take time off and all your coworkers are busy, rifling, doing things, and you have to worry about that. It's hard because I know fire and police and there are some public works people who do have to come out on these days. They understand that, but this action tonight specifically would give the 4 days, so December 27th through December 30th, as holiday vacation days to full and part-time people. Because Christmas and New Year's fall on a Saturday, we normally flip that and they get the Friday off. That's by code. So since the 25th is on a Saturday, the 24th is a Friday, they get that off, and then for the next week, so they'll get the Christmas on the Saturday, Sunday, then Monday through Thursday. Normally they would get New Year's Eve off in celebration of the New Year's Day that's on a Saturday. And so they'll go from the Thursday the 23rd and then come back on the 3rd. And so that's a fair stretch of time to just take a break and enjoy your holiday, enjoy your family. And they really, everybody, I know I've heard many comments about that. So in additionally, 4 additional shift holidays for those public safety employees assigned to shift work, where they're doing the 312s and 412s, and then the different shifts for that, and they can take advantage of those when they can schedule them in, and we have the staffing. And then the other thing we do is we have a special overtime policy for those people who have to work that, not only just your regular overtime, but when you're working overtime on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, or New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, We've allocated whoever works then. If you're police, fire, or your public works, and you have to come in and jump in a hole full of water, you'll get time and a half for that, just because you're pulling time from that special time from your family. And so by adopting this, we will enact this change. It's budgetary wise, there's some budget impact. A lot of it is the fact that vacation days, it's not an additional cost. It's just the fact that we're still going to pay people, just not going to be in working. But I think the trade-off is well worth it. Mr. Mayor, members of council, any questions?
Yes.
Well, on public safety, when we talk about additional cured holiday vacation days, are those 8-hour days or are they 12-hour? Because police works 12, fire works 24, 48. How does that work with them?
I don't see any of the police or fire. I know they're both in I believe they're 8-hour shifts, but I don't want to quote me on that, because I mean they do work. I mean, firemen work 48 hours at a time, but I believe I believe it's an 8-hour chunk. Let me put it this way: we're doing whatever we did last year, and everybody's happy about that. But I can't answer. I'm afraid to answer that specifically. If Pam is listening, maybe she can text me.
Well, this is moving forward to the next one anyway. You can get those for us. It's not an action item.
Okay, so let me answer that question.
Okay.
So we make a motion to move it to the next meeting? Okay. So moved.
We have motion second to move item 5B to the next meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. Action item 6A, consideration of final approval of ordinance number 874, amending the Globe City Code, replacing the name of the Globe Preservation Advisory Commission with the name Historic Preservation Advisory Commission. Shelley, and can you read ordinance 874, Shelley, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number 874, an ordinance of the City of Globe, Arizona, amending the Globe City Code, Section 14-2-4 and Section 14-5-17 by replacing the name of the Globe Preservation Advisory Commission with the name Historic Preservation Advisory Commission, HPAC, repealing any and all other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict therewith. Is council pleased with that reading?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, council, this second reading and possible approval will change the city code to reflect the name of the Historic Preservation Advisory Commission, which they've been operating under for 3 years, also known as HPAC.
Questions or comments? I know we discussed this in the last meeting. Yeah.
Mayor, I would move to approve ordinance number 874.
Got a motion, a second for approval of ordinance 874. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. Thank you, Shelley. Item 6B, presentation, discussion, and consideration to possibly approve the One Arizona distribution of opioid settlement funds agreement with the state of Arizona regarding the proposed settlements with distributors and J&J settlements. Paul.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, we spoke about this 2 weeks ago. It's a technical settlement, and we thought we'd go straight to the source. Bill Sims, our city attorney, I believe, is available on Zoom to speak to this item. Bill, are you there?
There's Jeannie.
There's Jeannie, but
I've been talking to Bill.
yeah, and I just texted him and said, so we sent him a link. So we're gonna call him. And anyway, just some basic background. We know that the opioid crisis and is a tremendous crisis that's come about. We believe that pharmaceutical companies were a little bit. Oh, here comes Bill. A little bit gung-ho on helping the spread of of this distribution of these drugs, and so they're making some changes. Bill, Do you want to talk about the root of this settlement and then what it means to Arizona and to the city of Globe?
Do the folks know who he is?
This is Bill Sims, our city attorney. Hey, Bill, and are you muted, Bill? Let's see. We do not hear you. We're working on. Can you hear us, Bill? Sound check 1, 2. You can hear us. But we cannot hear you.
Shoot.
There we
There you
go.
are.
Got it.
Oh, you didn't hear me say SHIT then.
For the record, you could have got away with that.
What was that?
No, we're communicating clearly now, Bill. So go ahead.
Okay. This has been going on for years, and you have been indirectly involved because the risk pool was one of the first entities in the state to hire an attorney to bring actions to recover municipal pool costs. Since then, a number of AGs around the nation signed on, and they got our AG to sign on to, in effect, take over. And they've now negotiated a resolution which has come before you. You agreed to a non-binding MOU last November. This now is binding. It sets the stage for the next phase of settlements with 3 defendants, 3 distributors and a manufacturer. There are other claims out there still going that will still proceed. You will need, if you agree to this tonight, you are agreeing to the percentages that are small, but you will get some amount of funds. You're agreeing to sign on, and you need to agree because the way the proposal works, that if just one city in your county declines to approve, then the entire amount paid to the county is reduced by 40%. And so my recommendation is that you would approve this, you have to approve it by November 10th. Then between November 10th and January 2nd, we will get the larger settlement agreements. Those will be agreements that will document the amount you receive and will require you to release the pharmaceutical companies and the distributors. There is a bit, you're obligated to do certain things. They're primarily with your first responders. Most of these funds are directed at the county level, where the county health departments can address the opioid crisis. This is somewhat like when the tobacco settlement deal about almost 15 years ago. The state swooped in and took almost all of it. Here, the state is only taking 44%. Cities and towns and counties are getting the balance. And then that's allocated among all the counties and among the cities and towns based on experience such as amount of opioid addiction in your town, the amount of illnesses and deaths, the amount of hospitalization. And so I'm recommending to all the cities and towns that I represent, and in fact, I wrote a letter on behalf of the pool saying it's up to you to make your own decision. But the way they've structured this, if you say no, you harm the other cities and towns and the county where you reside.
Questions for Bill? Bill, I have a question. Is it only cities that are part of this this settlement? It's not like organizations that promote opioid awareness and stuff. Would they have to submit to the county?
No, they would have to submit through the county. But you raise a good point, Mayor. The way this is structured, for example, Globe didn't file a lawsuit. Cities like Surprise, Glendale, Bullhead City, Tucson, and Phoenix all filed independent lawsuits. So they are entitled to recoveries. But what happened was the defendants realized that before they want to pay any money, they want to make sure they get as many releases as they can. So there's roughly 26 billion allocated. 10 of that goes away. Up to 10 of that goes away if you don't have large numbers of cities and towns participate. So what they've done, Mayor, is this allows you, Globe, to participate even though you didn't file a lawsuit. But no, it doesn't. Other people who were harmed by the opioid crisis, they would have to go to the county to get assistance. And when you look at the back end of the agreement you're signing, there's about 15 pages of things that can be done that generally can be done at the county level. Very few things that can be done at the city or town level.
A motion for,
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we accept the staff's recommendation to move forward with the approval of the One Arizona Distribution of Opioid Settlement Funds Agreement as presented tonight.
We have-
Mr. Mayor, before you vote, what we'll do is when we bring back the actual settlement agreements, we'll compute the amount that you received, because your constituents need to know what you're getting in return for releasing the pharmaceutical companies. We'll have that for you when we bring back the actual settlement agreements.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, we'll talk also about what are qualifying expenses. And I believe a lot of the good work that Chief Walters is doing with his victims advocacy and some of the special work there, I think this would fit right in because a lot of that is caused by these types of issues.
So those are very good suggestions. Yes.
We have a motion and second for approval of item 6B. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstaining? Motion passed. Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Mayor, you have a late e-session later. I'm going to go ahead and pack up and drive home, and I'll be on my cell and not on the Zoom for the e-session, if that's okay.
Sounds good. Thank
Bill,
you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bill.
Bye.
Item
Safe.
6C, consideration to award contract number CS-2021-0021 to Advanced Air to furnish and install 4 evaporative coolers in the new water barn in the amount of $37,287 plus a contingency amount of $2,713 for a total amount of $40,000, which has been budgeted and will be funded out of account number 50-80-52200, Water Capital Outlay Construction. Jerry.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we're trying to get the water barn operational, and tonight you passed a contract for Rodriguez to finish up the offices, and this is a contract for 1,600 cubic feet per minute evaporative coolers that go in the barn itself so the guys can work. And so basically, this kept getting kicked to the curb because of other things came up, and we finally gotten around to it. So we're ready to, we've already got our shelves, we've already got a lot of the equipment in there. We just need to get the barn operational so the guys can work inside of it. And the evaporative coolers is our first step. So,
Just in time for winter.
so and guess what happened last year? Winter hit, and Paul said, "It's winter time. We don't need it."
So Jerry, just question, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So Jerry, this water barn project's been going on for quite some time. Are we getting close to the end of it, or where are we at? Can we go out and take a look at it?
We sure can. The offices are framed. They still need to be finished off. The air conditioning and the bathrooms need to be finished off. The shelving's all been put in. The barn itself is complete. These evaporative coolers will allow the guys to work inside the barn even in the summer months. And we're close. We can use it. We store things there. We utilize it, but we can't utilize it fully until we get things operational.
Sure.
And it's been frustrating for us too, but we tried to do a lot of the work ourselves to save money, and being shorthanded and with COVID and everything else, we just weren't able to do it.
Okay.
So
No.
that's where
I'd
we're
like to
at.
come out and take a look, so.
Yep,
I'll get a hold of you.
absolutely. John will give you the $3 tour. That'll only cost you $250.
Having worked up in the mines for many years and working in those big barns, I know what the need of some kind of air conditioning is. They can get pretty uncomfortable.
So one of the questions was why 4? Because depending on what end of the barn you're working on and whether you need the evaporative coolers. Also, there are times you can shut down 2 and only operate with 2. These coolers that they're installing have the ability to either work simultaneously or by themselves. So, and that's up to the guys working in the barn.
Okay.
You want to add anything, John?
Ready, go ahead.
Jerry, is there any ductwork along with this project, or is it just coolers?
This is just coolers. The ductwork is actually inside the offices where we'll have the split air. air conditioning inside, 2 offices and the bathroom. And that's probably going to be on the next council meeting.
And that, I think that amounts about $8,000, so I don't know if it'll have to go before.
Yeah, we've
council.
actually already put it out.
It'll be the under 25
We
list.
just weren't able to put it together for this council meeting.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is, this kind of is a good example of kind of the change in the philosophy of how we are doing things. Again, Jerry had always talked about ham and egg. Is it hamming and egging? What is it? Ham and egging?
I think it's funnier when you say it, so.
About piecemealing these projects together, and it was a way when in tight budget times, and so they ordered the building, they got the plans, they laid the concrete, then they had the building sitting in boxes, and we assembled the building, and now we're drywalling walls and doing stuff. In the future, we would probably just do this building all at once, and just soup to nuts, do the thing together. It would get put together much faster, but this kind of spreads it out over budget years, and but again, with staffing is at a premium right now. We, again, like the common lines, we're going out to contract for those. I think it's a better model that we save our staff for those crucial maintenance and repair for the support, but these types of one-up capital projects that we go out to bid and do them and get them done in a timely manner. But that's why you kind of see the the staggering of it, but they're very proud of it, and it's a beautiful building, and it's going to be a great addition.
So, and to be real fair to the guys, they built the site that the pad lays on. They've done a lot of they've done all the plumbing thus far. They've done a lot of the pre-work. It's probably saved $200,000-$300,000 on that building. So I'm really proud of what they do. We're just shorthanded right now. We can't get this done, and we're ready to move into it.
I mean, we saved, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we saved a lot of money on the rehab of the sewer treatment plant. We saved probably over $1 million on that. And so there are times when it's beneficial and it's a make or break thing. But if possible, we're going to try to do these as a whole project. Sounds good.
So if there are no further questions, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve, we award contract number CS 2021-0021 to Advanced Air to furnish and install 4 evaporative coolers in the new water barn in the amount of $37,000 plus contingency of $2,700 for a total of $40,000, which has been budgeted into the account number 50-80-52200 Water Capital Outlay Construction.
A motion and a second for item 6Z. Any further discussion?
I just got a quick comment. We have a brand new AC contractor in town. Jesse got his contractor's license today, so congratulations. And when
Congratulations.
he gets some experience, maybe he can save us some money and start bidding on some of these things.
There you go.
Attaboy, Jess.
Good. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. Thank you, Jerry. Item D, consideration discussion to ratify Mayor Algameros' signature on purchase order number 22-0053 issued to Chapman Ford in the amount of $48,991.51 to secure ordering a 2022 Ford F-250 with a service body for the water department and to waive section 2-4-10A prior discussion rule. Funds have been budgeted in the account number 50-80-5200 Water Capital Outlay Equipment. Jeannie.
And Jeannie, are you out there? And there you
Yes.
Hey, there she is.
are. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. On September 28th, the city issued an informal bid request for the purchase of a 2020 or 2021 Ford F-250 with a service body. The bid request was sent to 9 car dealerships, including 1 local vendor. And then on October 4th, we sent out a revised scope clarifying the extended cab and requesting a royal bed or equivalent 8-foot for the service body. That was sent to the same 9 dealerships with the bid due date of October 15th. Chapman Ford is the only dealer that submitted a bid, and they did note on theirs that Chapman Ford's bid notes that the vehicles will have to be ordered. Ford is requiring the dealerships to upload purchase orders by November 10th, 2021 to be considered for 2022 bills. The city currently has 3 trucks budgeted in our fiscal year CIP, and with the supply chain being in as bad a shape as it is, and I emailed back and forth with one of the other car dealerships who didn't submit a price, and they just said, we just can't get anything. And I did ask if there was any light at the end of the tunnel, and he said, well, if things go the way they're supposed to, hopefully maybe 6 months. So having the only bid from Chapman with the notation that they needed to upload purchase orders by November 10th, staff asked Mayor to sign a purchase order so we could get that off to them and not have any delays. I did confirm with the Chapman today that he has placed the order for that. So I am asking for the ratification of the mayor's signature on the purchase order. And it was in the amount of $48,991.51.
Jeannie, thank you for explaining that. My question was, even after I signed it, about the local dealer here in our area and why they did not bid on it. And we didn't get a response initially, and with the change order, we didn't get a response at either part of it.
No, and when I send the bid requests out to all of the contractors, I always do a read, deliver option in Outlook. And so I received the delivery notice that it was delivered to that vendor both times, but I never did receive a read notice.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, Jeannie, and you had reflected a story that that our fleet manager had spoken about, kind of talked about these bids coming up, and there was some feedback. Do you remember that story?
I just believe that he had some feedback from the local vendor that they wouldn't be able to participate in this first pickup that we put out for bid with the service body.
And I believe that is, with the shortage of vehicles and having to remove a bed and put a service body in there, I think, I think all the dealerships are trying to maximize their profits on what vehicles they can get their hands on, and so I think every F-150 and every F-250 four-wheel drive is precious, and so I believe that's why there's very few people offering to even order them, because they.
John.
Yeah, John can. Okay.
John wants to say something.
Go ahead, John.
We'll go straight to the source here. Hopefully, what I said was accurate.
I didn't throw a hammer at you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What Paul was coming to is basically what it was. Our fleet manager sat down on August 7th with the local vendor, dealer, and had expressed our interest in future upcoming and purchases. This fleet style bed truck, they said they probably would not be putting a bid on because of, just like Paul said, is a lot of time it's a royal body, service body. To replace. So a lot of times too, from them purchasing the truck, having to send it off, get the body done. By the time all that gets done, the actual price goes, as opposed to purchasing it from a vendor that's already working in that. We did express that we had 3 pickup trucks, 4-wheel drive units that we're looking to. They actually provided us with some quotes on that at that time, and I told them it was kind of preliminary work, and until we got further along into our budget cycle that we'd probably be and they said that's why they said they would be willing to update those quotes when we came to that point. So they've been actually contacted and had a sit down. That was August 7th.
Fernando?
Well, I would be willing to make a motion to bail you out since you signed this prematurely
Well, it's not.
and ratify your signature. We don't want you in jail or anything like that.
We have motion and a second for item 6D, ratification of a signature. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, John, you know, your truck doesn't look a day over 2018. It's so beautiful. It's so clean, spotless. What year is your truck?
It's a 2007. We purchased it from a ADOT used lot.
Okay. So, and,
Yeah.
yeah,
It looks good.
yeah.
Actually, what we'll be doing is moving with the trucks. We're actually moving around. Mayor, if you remember, Bob Arthur's, there was a donated four-wheel drive truck that was donated to fire department for many years. And then he retired and it went to Public Works. And actually, this one of the truck's movements will be replacing that one. It was a 97. So,
Just, go ahead, Jess.
Yeah. Carl,
not
yeah, the
not
yeah, the Bumblebee is going away, but it's an S10 stick shift. It's a classic.
That's the old dog catcher truck.
Collectible.
We,
Yeah.
Was he?
yeah. Yeah, we're gonna, yeah, Mayor, we can take that on Friday night. I'll drive it. The Yellow Demon.
In a tow truck.
And we will be, just for the record, we are getting, a truck for our building inspector. It'll be new to him, but it will not be a brand new truck. But we do have a updated, newer, more fitting of the position truck. Had lots of comments on that.
So I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed.
Thank you, Janie.
Thank you.
Item 6E. Gonna have to bail me out again. Consideration to approve a contract with Superior Tank Solution in the amount not to exceed $962,500. This amount includes a 10% contingency for the repair of leaking water storage tanks located at Hagen site, funded from account number 50-80-53005, Water Contingency Reserve. Additionally, approval of American America's authorization of an emergency purchase based on City Code Section 3-5-14 and give the city manager the authority to approve the contract after city attorney review. Gary.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, Danny, I think we have the PowerPoint. Okay. There we go. Jerry?
You're up, Jerry.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to cue it up.
We have a copy of that. Get one?
Yeah. I did not get one.
I have an extra one here.
Get one? You didn't get one?
I've got. I do. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the repair of the Hagen tanks. We have two 1.5 million gallon bolted tanks at on top of Hagen Hill. They were purchased originally from town in California. They were built by Superior Tanks. We purchased them in 1998. Superior Tanks has overseen all the repairs up to this point, but they're getting to the point where they have to be something drastic done to them. So the tank capacity, we have decreased the tank capacity because every time we fill them up, they last for a period of time and then they start leaking again. So we have to have Superior Tank back out to fix them. And so, and also without an altitude valve at Crestline, we would be filling them up manually. We would be holding the valve open while they filled. So anyway, we've kept them about 2/3 full over the years. Over the last 6 years that I've been here, almost 8, and I think they've been 2/3 full in that entire 8 years. So we had planned on doing a complete rehab on this on these tanks in next year's fiscal CIP, and things happen quick. So we had an annual ADQ inspection There was some leakage in the bottom of one of the tanks, and they gave us a letter, notice of violation on those tanks because it's not appropriate for our water supply to have leaks in it. As Councilman Rios pointed out, it's if it can go out, there's bacteria that can go in. So and to mitigate that, we have responded to ADQ, telling them that our plan was to seal these tanks off. And I'll present a couple of different options here that we talked to part of the council about. But anyway, ADQ has given us 120 days to make those corrections. And we're asking to invoke section 3.5.14, the emergency procurement, because of the time restriction that we have of the 4 months. So based on that, the mayor has authorized the procurement managers to bypass the solicitation process because the compliance is impractical within the time restraint. We also believe that Superior Tank, being that they are the original provider, they've performed all the maintenance on it, and their past relationship with the city, that they are the only contractor that we want on board. So if the 120 days deadline is not met, then the city will negotiate with ADEQ and hopefully have a contract in hand to show them that we are actively pursuing how to mitigate the issues. If not, if they deny us that, then we will go into a consent order. We are given a period of time again in the consent order to mitigate the response, and then we could be put under penalty violations at that point. And some of them are pretty severe. So we have no doubt that with your permission to move forward, that we will have a contract underway within the next couple weeks. So option one, as we talked about with the infrastructure committee, is to actually tear down the entire tanks one at a time, to take them down and put new gaskets in from top to bottom. There are some advantages. It maximizes the life of the tank. In other words, once we put the gaskets in, if we needed to, we could go in and recoat them again without tearing out a coating that we would put in. And there are a lot of disadvantages with this option. One is once we start tearing it apart, we don't know what we're going to find. We might have to replace panels, which is an additional cost. We might have to address the floor, which is an additional cost. And there's no warranty on this. You know, once they tear it down and put it back together, it's ours. They won't guarantee it because they're using used materials. So, and the mobilization for this is 4 to 8 weeks. Option two, staff believes is a better option. This is to put a coating on the inside, including all the way up to the roof area. It is as thick as 80 mils. We're estimating a life of probably 20 to 30 years on this coating. And as Councilman Rios pointed out in the infrastructure meeting, it needs to be on a regular inspection to make sure that we can maintain maximum efficiency in these products. What option two really does for us is it gives us the ability to not worry about that extra 1/3 of each tank, which together makes up 1 million gallons, and we can move forward with filling these completely. And even though it doesn't seem like it, like out in the canyon, like where I live, the water pressure is very low. And by adding another 1 million gallons to these tanks, your head pressure may not increase significantly, but it will increase some. just by adding that extra footage on top. So on this price on this is about 370,000 per tank. If we do the tanks one right after another, if not, then it's 440,000 per tank if we have to pull out and come back again. So additional costs is the altitude valve that is already in the CIP this year for $45,000, and with the coating, we would like to hire a professional inspector to come in and do the inspection work on the coating, because there's nobody really on staff that has that ability. So so we're talking about another $70,000, which 45 of it is already budgeted into the CIP. This and the 962,500 is the most expensive that we could go. That's the way we wanted to make sure we didn't go over that. And it also has 10% contingency in that amount as well. And that would be taken from the water contingency reserve, which would have been how we put it in the CIP next year anyway. So basically, we're moving everything up 8 months, and we're doing it now to make sure that we don't get dinged by ADQ and fined later on. So I think if there's any, I have a nice picture of the tanks. So
Go ahead, Jesse.
Jerry, this is for one tank or both?
this is both tanks. They're 370,000 apiece. They're done one right after another. It takes about 2 months to coat one, because you have to go in, you have to drain them, you have to sandblast them, you have to come back in and coat the joints, and then come back in and do a complete coating over that. So it's a process.
What would you anticipate the cost would be for one of these tanks to buy a new one?
So we priced out a welded tank. If we put 1.5 million gallon tank up at today's current steel prices, with and Superior said it's $1.72, I believe, a gallon, and with the current prices going up the way they are, probably about $3 million per tank. So yeah, and that doesn't really include the foundations and so forth, because if we put up a welded tank, as Freddie can tell you, it's a whole different type of foundation and that they sit on. This is not a Band-Aid. This is a fix. So this is a long-term fix. It can be blasted out and redone if we need to 30 years down the road. And also, if we need to, it can be tore down and erected somewhere else if the city changes within that 30 years. So it produces a not only water supply for the city, but it also fire protection for the city. I can't remember the year, John, but when the movies theaters burnt up here,
2005.
2005, we drained all these tanks. Yeah, we as the mayor can tell you, we were hurting for water at that point. So doing away with one of these tanks and that is really not an option for the city, especially on the expansion that we're doing, which, by the way, is just down the road.
Mariano?
I would expect after all this is done that Paul, you and Jerry would set up a timeline of inspection to validate that the tanks are operable and up to snuff every year, and to document that as best you can, so that in the future, if we're 30 years down the road, we can prove to ADQ and other entities that we have been doing our due diligence after this has been done.
Councilman Gonzalez and Mr. Mayor, members of council, and this was a part of the conversation with the work group that met, our infrastructure work group met and talked about the narrow issue of the how to replace this tank and the necessity for our tank capacity. And that consisted of Councilman Shipley, Councilman Pastor, and Councilman Rios. And Mr. Mayor, if you would mind, I'd like to call on Councilman Rios, a senior council member on that committee, to kind of report back to the group as to the discussions and the outcomes. Councilman Rios?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm gonna have to go by memory because I left my notes in my car. But yeah, we did talk about the situation that we're in with obviously a notice of violation. That said, the pressure's on to make sure that we get this corrected and corrected quickly. And because it is a high dollar, a high ticket repair or fix, we want to make sure we do it right. Inspections after it's done, obviously, when projects like this are done, there is an inspector, and usually a third-party inspector. That way, it's the city shows to the agencies that are the regulatory agencies that are going to be looking at these documentations that we're totally transparent and that the work is done according to specifications. My thoughts on this is, a bolted tank, the phenomena of metal and heat and cold is it moves. And over time, your bolts, your gaskets, due to the constant movement of the heat and cold, they expand and contract. You get these kinds of leaks that'll happen. So it's obvious to me that we do have to put some sort of a fix on it, a coat, and then probably Superior Tank would be the company that could best recommend the timelines on inspections. It may be once every 2 years. There's different types of inspections. There's people that can actually go in and they dive these tanks and they videotape, and so that you can actually see what's going on in your tank. And it's, of course, they do all the disinfection that they need to do. They basically go in like with a scuba gear. And so that's one type of inspection. Another one is where you just draw down the tank to a level where people can actually get inside and put up scaffolding and visually inspect it and check and see where repairs need to be made. That's my recommendation, is that we continue to have a routine exercise of checking our tanks, monitoring them, maintaining them, but not just this one. I think all of our city tanks. We can't just exclude one and think that the others are not having the same issues that go on. Water is naturally corrosive. So it's important that we recoat. It's important that we inspect. And I would advise and recommend to this body that we start looking at ways to build some sort of an accrual account so that we can routinely go in there and check these tanks. I can guarantee you that Department of Environmental Quality will always be coming out and checking tanks. That's their job. They're checking to make sure that the sanitary of our drinking water is held to the highest standards. And I wouldn't expect anything less for our citizens and for any of us. If we could do something like that, maybe in our next budget cycle, talk about some sort of an accrual account or some sort of, kind of like we're doing with our the common lines, the sewer lines, maybe something like that, so that we do have a purse that we can go into and do these inspections. And what these inspections will do is they'll give you a timeline of when you may need to come in and do some major work. Then now we can CIP a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, whatever it might be. But to work under the gun, under an emergency, is not the best way to handle these kinds of things. They're the most costly, and they're really, they really has the potential of impacting our domestic water. So the last point that I would make, and I may have made it in our meeting, but we need to start looking at, when we start buying tanks and building tanks, the integrity of welded steel is the way to go. When you have bolted tanks, bolts, they loosen up, and like I said, they move. But welded steel is very rigid. It's the steel is thick, and if you continue this routine maintenance of going in and rehabbing and sandblasting and recoating, those tanks could last for decades. I mean, in my experience, I'm thinking back some of the oldest tanks that we have that are welded in my company. They date back to the 40s and 50s, and the structure is still there. The integrity is still there, but again, you have to go in and you have to maintenance, you have to sandblast, you have to O&M these and recoat. And so these are things I think that this council and future councils really should consider when we do start looking at rehabbing or maybe even tearing down. This might be a perfect example. Maybe we can rehab one and then start looking at replacing the other one with a welded steel, if we can expense it. So, I mean, there's options. I'm going to leave that to the staff, but it is a recommendation of mine that we start looking towards welded steel versus purchasing bolted tanks. They're just, I'm not saying they're not a good product, but here we're talking 20, 30 years of life, whereas a welded steel could be double that, if not more. So, did I miss anything on that?
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't bring my notes, but those were the kind of the highlights.
Thank you, sir.
Just a
Routine maintenance, and let's see if we can build some sort of a accrual account.
So in our group, we discussed the potential of maybe buying new ones, which we thought was too much and not warranted in this situation. We figured that money would be better spent if we have future expansion and adding a water tank versus spending it now.
Yep.
And then we talked about the possibility of putting these out, of decommissioning them and just having less water available, but fire, that just wouldn't work. And so we covered all that in our meeting, so.
Thank you, Fernando.
So if I may, after we rehab these two tanks, we have two tanks that have not been rehabbed. One of them is the 500,000 gallon tank at Hagen. In addition to these two, 1.5 million, we have a 500,000 up there as well. And with the additional water that's going to be in these two tanks, we're able to take it offline and have it rehabbed next fiscal year. And then the other tank that hasn't been rehabbed is at Apache Peaks, and it's been decommissioned. So we didn't put the money into it, even though we had it in the CIP because we decommissioned it. So all the other tanks have been rehabbed within the last 4 years, John. And Superior Tank, when they did these, they told us that they would need to be re-inspected within 5 years. So
Okay.
so they told us that fiscal year 22-23 would be when we need to set up a program. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, John, we have 3 bolted tanks, 1 at Crestline and 2 at Hagen, right? And the rest of them are all welded. Yeah, so even the old one at Crestline is a welded tank, right? So so that's kind of where we're at. But the new one we just built is a bolted tank. So
And just another point, the rehab and the recoats, equally exterior as well as interior. So it's not just the inside that you want to maintain, but it's also the exterior, the rusting and keeping erosion from happening. So, but these tank companies are really good at that. They're professionals. They know what they're doing. They use the highest qualities of these coats and things like that. So it's not an inexpensive venture. It is an expensive venture. Either way you go.
I had never seen them before. It was amazing to watch them blast these
yeah.
out and recoat them. I was impressed.
Yeah.
You know, these guys know what they're doing, and I'd never seen it before, so it was a new experience for me.
pretty rough work.
Plus, with bolted tanks, you have all these rubber gaskets. And what does rubber do? It dries out, right? And they crack over time. So that's just the other thing, the other reason why, I would recommend not going bolted. And then, of course, the rubber gasket has to be NSF, it's called NSF 60 approved, which means it's a rubber gasket that drinking water can touch without being compromised. So you can't just put any kind of rubber in there. It's a special kind of rubber. But nevertheless, rubber dries out and it cracks. Once it's drying out, it's done. It's at the end of its useful life. And guess what? Your tanks will start leaking. So we can have a class on that some other time.
Freddie and Jerry, going along with that too, are we doing evaluation of our wells too? I know that's another big subject that we need to keep track of when we need to rehabilitate or service them, or however, our wells are an expensive venture too.
So our wells, we have done extensive renovations on the wells. We have a well 5 that has not been renovated yet. The rest of them have within the period that I was here. I think the first one was done about 6 or 7 years ago. Well 1, is that right? And that was the second year I was here, I believe, when we got the big WIFA. And we did, we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, and Pine Street well. And then Hagen well as well. So, we're working on it, but you're right, we need more of a program. And
Right.
this year, this past year, we were set up to do well 5, but we had some issues with some of the other wells getting sand in them. And so therefore, we were down with 2 wells at one time, and we weren't able to take 5 offline. So it's, even though it's not one of our high producers, we needed that extra water in the city if we were having, 2 of our highest producing wells down. So, you want to add anything, John? Yeah. So, and a lot of it hasn't been the wells itself, it's been the electrical, and we've had to upgrade all that. And, when we first got here, the lightning prevention wasn't even upgraded. Almost every single one of our wells was tripped.
Yep.
And John and I went out and made sure every single one of those was protected. So, we weren't real good about protecting our infrastructure. We are now.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, members of council.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Mayor, you bring up a good point. I mean, now we're talking about the entire infrastructure, right? We've talked about water mains and fixing water leaks and things like that, but yeah, for the security and sustainability of our community, and if we are going to expand as we're pushing to and we're hoping to, we've got to preserve all our resources, and wells is very important. Tanks equally. So it's the entire infrastructure is when you're looking at it. You're bringing from bringing the water out of the ground right to somebody's meter and everything in between. Maintenance programs on wells, obviously recommended, and it sounds like you're already talking about that, and tanks as well. We've done a lot of mainline infrastructure, which is good because now the water stays in the pipe. It doesn't, it costs money to pump water. And if it never reaches the cash register, which is a meter, there's no return on all the expenses that we're putting into our facilities. And that's sustainability. If you can capture the water, have it go through the cash registers, now your our balances in our what do you call it, of the funds, lost it.
Contingent funds.
Well, I'm thinking of the water and sewer funds.
Enterprise.
Sorry.
Okay.
So it's just a revolving thing that we minimize our losses, which expands our revenues, which now we can do more with. So that's the theory, and it can be done. But can't be done without a plan. If you don't have a plan, a systematic plan on going in, routinely rehabbing, these guys are really good about checking their wells. They know when wells are starting to fail based on the electrical loads, the amp loads and things like that. We call them drawdowns, how much water is drawing down in the well while it's running, and how many GPMs we're getting out of each well. So there's signs that are out there that when it's time to rehab a well. There's definite signs.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, one of the takeaways from the subcommittee, or not subcommittee, but the work group on infrastructure is we will return with a draft version of that plan on maintenance, and both for tanks and likely for wells too. So that'll be tracked ongoing for every 2 months that they meet.
Okay. And then just one more question, because I wanted to make sure that imposing the emergency procurement, the reason for signing immediately because of the time frame of 120 days. If we had to go through a procurement process, I don't know if that's a Jeannie question, how long would it take us? We would not meet that 120 days to be able to do these tanks.
Jeannie, are you there?
Went to bed.
I believe it'd be 45 to 60 is a normal procurement.
I am here. Yes, it would be 45. It'd be probably closer to 60 than 45.
And that's just to get the contract there. To get the work done would take, that much more. Where this, we could actually get a contractor on the job.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, one of the things we're finding, if you need to act when we have the availability and somebody willing to do the work or join the team, we need to say yes. If we're going to say yes, we need to say yes soon, because things are so dynamic, so changing. So Superior is willing to do this, and so we're going to get them started with this approval.
Mr. Mayor, if there's no other questions or comments, I motion to approve as read.
We have a motion, a second for approval of item 6E, ratification of to Superior Tank Solutions. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Item F is consideration and possible approval to authorize the purchase of new playground equipment for City Hall from Game Time in the amount of $116,126.56, with funds coming from the 2021-2022 CDBG grant and budgeted in account number 20-80-09037- Veterans Park Revitalization, and request to waive section 2-4-10 prior discussion rule. Linda.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Excuse me. Agenda item came up by surprise. I was deep into my emails. So tonight we're asking for approval of the Veterans Hall playground equipment. We have qualified for 100% grant match from Game Time. Time is of the essence. We have until November 2nd to apply. We did qualify due to the amount of the purchase of the community center equipment and the City Hall equipment. So we were able, it's basically a 50% off sale that we were able to really pack the park with some amazing amenities. It's going to be amazing. I think you have the site plan in your attachments. One item, just so everyone isn't surprised, because John and I kind of were when we met on Friday with our playground representative, even though we have seen the plan for several months. The bigger system for the older kids will be closer to council chambers, so just right outside the door, and then the swings will be on the street side, so maybe the squeak will be less noticeable. And then the system for the younger kids, that will be on the side closer to the police department.
Oh, wow.
Linda, is this, what's the time frame for installation on all? That includes installation on it?
It does.
The 116?
It does. It includes the wood fiber, the installation, the delivery, the equipment, of course, and there's enough wiggle room in the budget that we think we can cover new concrete leading from the street up to City Hall. So basically our summer concert dance floor. will be crack-free.
Will this also, how close are we with the community center playground equipment? Is that part of the CDBG funding or is it?
No, it is
be-
not, because the location of City Hall falls within the low to mod income vicinity. And thank you, Jerry, for that verbiage. And so the community center falls outside of that, so we would have to do the door-to-door survey, and so we were able to utilize that funding here and have an amazing and completed project. If we were talking about 9 months ago, installation would be within 4 to 5 weeks, but because we're in the times that we are now, it's a 14 to 17 week delivery period. So we'll see it here and installed by spring.
Something when we do our community center pool and all that should come into play, everything should.
Everything's going to hit all at once.
Good. Good.
Thank you, John.
One other question.
We are, yes. Lots of ribbon cuttings.
116 leaves us a balance on the CDBG. What are we doing with the balance of the funds of that? What
The
are we
concrete.
getting? The concrete and
Concrete,
stuff.
and we need to move some lights, the historic looking light poles outside, move some electrical. So it will all definitely be utilized in this footprint. It's going to be amazing.
Any other questions or? That's 100%, no match from the city then?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if there are no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of new playground equipment for the City Hall from Game Time in the amount of $116,126.56, with the funds coming from the 2021-2022 CDBG grant and budgeted in account 20-80-09037 Grants Veterans Park Revitalization, and request to waive the section rule 2-4-10. Prior discussion rule.
Second.
Motion second for approval of item 6F. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
Item 7, late agenda items. Any late agenda items? None?
No.
Call to the public. Do we have anybody else from the online or?
Check real quick. See nothing in council email.
We'll go item 9, scheduling the meetings.
I believe we have,
December council meetings were changed, their dates.
yeah, that has been acted on already, and that's the only, just the moving the 2 December meetings forward, so it'll be first and third Tuesday in December.
Item 10, future agenda items. Anybody have any agenda items for the future?
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, we're loading up the work groups, the 3-member work groups with a lot of the backlog of those future agenda items. And I think that's we found a good method of dealing with keeping the meeting short, but still getting the council the information they need.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was kind of boxed in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 2 hours is pretty good.
But I think I make $1.15 an hour when you figure out all what we do.
Probably less. Do we have a motion to go in executive session?
Second.
Motion second to go into E-session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay.
Mr. Mayor, to members of council, to the people watching.